Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
You make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
She's passionate about telling stories of amazing women who are rocking the world and empowering women to live, love, and thrive. Here's your host, Catherine Gray.
Welcome, everybody, to Live, Love, Thrive Women's Empowerment Hour, brought to you by 360karma.com. We hope you're joining the Women's Empowerment conversation on our Facebook and following us on Twitter and Instagram at My360Karma. Today, we have on a friend of mine. She's an incredible lady. She has a story not to be believed. In fact, so much so, they've made a one-woman show about it, and we're going to talk about that. She also has a book, a podcast, and she is the owner of the Raging Skillet catering company in New York City. Please welcome my friend, Chef Rossi. Hi, Chef. How are you?
Very happy to be here.
You know, it's so funny, Chef Rossi. I know that's not like your, name you were born with. At least I don't think so. But but I know you talk about it in your book. Yeah. Why don't we tell everybody?
Well, people always ask me, like, how did I become Chef Rossi as a Hungarian Jew? You know, that sounds very Italian.
Yeah.
And so I always say, well, if you were brought up Slava Davida Shana Baschana Rochel, you would change your name pretty quickly, too. I'd
Yes,
probably
you
be
would.
like selling kreplach on the highway if I hadn't done that.
Well, your story is remarkable. It's no wonder there's a one-woman show about it. And I loved your story about how that one-woman show got written. It was really hilarious. But before we get to that, I do want to talk a little bit about your background and your journey to where you are today as a successful businesswoman. But it started out that you were born in Jersey City,
right.
and then grew up in Brooklyn, right?
Well, what happened was I grew up on the Jersey Shore. And I grew up what you would call lowly Orthodox.
Yeah.
That meant like our meat and dairy dishes were separate. My parents were sort of like that level of Orthodox.
Yeah.
But we ate like the fish sandwich at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Kind of like at that level. And when I was 16, I ran away from home. And I had a great time until the police busted my party. And I was sent to live with a Hasidic rabbi in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, who specialized in taking in wayward Jewish girls.
Oh, my gosh.
So that worked really well, as
Not
you can
a
tell.
fun time.
No.
Yeah.
But it got me to New York, and
Yeah.
it gave me quite a few stories to tell.
I bet. In fact, I know you're working on a book about that story. Yeah.
Well, my first...
Escaping Kings.
Right, that's
is it?
called Escape from Kingston Avenue.
Escape from Kingston
My first
Avenue.
memoir, The Raging Skillet, came out a couple years ago, and I've been on a 2-year-long book tour. But I wanted to write a whole book just on my experience in Crown Heights with the Hasids. And
Right.
that's my next one.
Well, and I didn't know this about you, and we've been friends for a while, and you shared your background. And I find that a lot of times with people and their friends, they really don't know people's backgrounds or what
Right.
they've been through.
Right.
And really, it was quite a thing that you experienced living in this area when you were 16, and they put you with the Hasidic Jews. And but you told me it was kind of terrifying. It was like a really bad neighborhood. Yeah.
Somehow my mother had seen in a Jewish newspaper about this Hasidic rabbi who got kids out of cults and reprogrammed them into his particular cult. And so, which is what I sort of consider some of what I saw there. Anyway, my parents thought that was a great idea, or at least my mother did. But they had somehow neglected to notice that they were sending me to one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in New York.
Oh, my gosh.
So I'm a 16-year-old little punk rock girl who grew up on the Jersey Shore, and I'm plopped off into this drive-by shooting neighborhood that
my gosh.
I think it had like 1,800 murders the year that I was dropped off there.
Right.
But I didn't want to tell my parents exactly how dangerous it was, because even though it was terrible, to me it was still better than living at home. So
Oh, wow.
I kind of kept my mouth shut.
Right, wow. So living on the edge there in this reformatory, basically, environment, how come it was better than living at home? What was living at home like?
Well, they had.
I know you talk about this in your memoir,
Yeah.
The Raging Skillet. Yeah.
My parents were older when they had kids, and they were a little bit like being raised by grandparents. They had older values, and so they didn't want us to go to rated R movies, and they wanted my sister and I to button our top button and to be very strict. And I wanted to dye my hair pink and dance to the Ramones, and
Yeah.
plus I was starting to wonder if maybe I wasn't exactly straight.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a good fit.
Right.
And they couldn't handle me at all. So
Yeah.
our
You
fight-
were a rebel.
Yeah, it wasn't gonna.
Still are.
Still am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, later on we got to be friends again, thank God. But
Yeah.
at that point, no, it wasn't gonna work.
But you never did share with them, and I know they're not here anymore. You never did share with them how, what a rough neighborhood you.
Well, a long
Lived
time
in.
later, my mother passed away by this time, but my father was about 80 years old with his new girlfriend. And I was starting to explain a little bit about what the neighborhood was like. And his girlfriend was like, "Oh my God, oh, that's terrible." And she kept turning to him going, "Marty, how could you send her there?" And my father was just like, he just sort of went over his head. He was like, "What are we eating?"
Yeah, I don't know if it goes over people's heads. I think that generation goes into denial.
Right. I think
Like
you're
when
right.
I came out to my
Right.
parents and they were like, "What?" That was the biggest shock of all. They're what?
Right. They're like, "Oh no."
Yeah, I looked like this. It was amazing. But anyway, I digress.
I could have told them. I could have been like, "This gorgeous creature is obviously gay," just so you know.
Just so you know. So back to you. So after you left this house, what was the next step? Were you out on your own? when
Yeah,
you
I
left
was
there?
out on my
Yeah.
own for about 3 months. I had saved up a lot of money. I had been saving up money to run away from home since I was 6 years old.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you really didn't like it.
No, I really didn't.
Yeah.
I had a great job on the Long Branch Amusement Pier where I was the cigarette girl. So we had a game of roulette, and you put a quarter down and
Yeah.
maybe win a carton of cigarettes.
Oh,
So
my
I had a
goodness.
microphone. I'd be like, "Hey, what do you say? Come on and play. Give it a spin and see if you win." You know?
I can see you doing
Anyway,
this.
so I saved up like $3,000, and I had enough money for some crappy little hotels on the Jersey Shore. So
Wow.
I had a 3-month-long party, and then I had a great big party. And to this day, I don't remember why. I invited a bunch of sailors over. To this day, I don't know why. And I had my high school friends who really looked their age.
Yeah.
But when I was 16, I looked like I was in my 30s. I mean, I really looked about how old I look
Yeah.
right now.
It's good it's reversed now.
I know, thank God, right? And so the police busted my party, and they arrested me for corrupting minors.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
And you were a minor.
And I was 16. So I had to show them my ID so I didn't get sent away to jail, and they called my parents. And that's when they dropped me off with the Hasids.
Oh, wow. So once you left there, how did you make your way to New York and start this catering company? I know you did share with me first you worked for other companies,
Right.
but it was very male-oriented back
Right,
in that
right,
time.
right.
It still is, but,
Right.
even more so then. And it was hard for a woman to break in, but you were telling me that there were lawsuits going on, and that kind of opened the door for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I started out as a bartender, and I loved bartending, but my clients never wanted to leave. I'd start telling them jokes. They never wanted to
could
leave.
see why.
The kitchen would close. They never wanted to leave. So I started going in the back to cook things for them so they wouldn't throw up on the bar, so they'd have something to eat,
There's an incentive.
I mean, I was like, "Please eat something. Don't throw up on my bar. It's disgusting." Anyway, so I thought, you know what? I really liked the cooking part, and I was getting sick of dealing with alcoholics all day. So I started to decide to, become a chef. And to do that, I had to do some internships and things like that. And women were just not welcome in the kitchen. This was the 80s, and
Right.
we really weren't welcome. But there were some lawsuits around then, class action lawsuits about discriminating against women. And so I took advantage of that and got my foot in the door. And I
But
would get
even
these,
when you got your foot in the door, you experienced the
right,
sexual
absolutely.
harassment and everything.
They
right?
they didn't
Yeah.
want to fire me because of the threat of the lawsuit, but they wanted to make me quit. So they would terrorize me and sexually harass me and give me terrible jobs. And basically, I saved myself because I was blessed with really, really a filthy mouth. So, I could curse with the best of them. And so I would tell them what to do with their this and that. And I sort of eventually won their respect.
It sounds like that experience of being sent off to that home, actually, like many times in people's lives, that challenge probably made you more resilient.
Right.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah.
No matter what, no matter how hard something is, I have yet to experience anything where I couldn't stop in the middle
Yeah.
of it
Yeah,
and say,
you're very
still
fearless.
not as bad as Crown Heights in 1981.
Right.
you know?
Wow. Wow.
So it has been kind of a source of strength.
Yeah. And what made that 1981 Crown Heights so horrible?
Well, the fact was, in the Hasidic neighborhood, you were relatively safe from outside crime. But if you took 3 steps out, you know, you were sort of like a sitting duck. There were like these terrible drug dealing gangs that hung out on the corner, and people were getting killed in broad daylight. And then even within the community, you weren't really safe because there were a lot of renegade Hasidic Jews that really should not have been there, who were showing up at my door and trying to have sex with me. I mean,
my
it was
gosh.
really, really an ordeal.
Oh my gosh.
And so
that's what made you a tough broad.
I had to get very tough very
Yeah.
fast.
Wow.
I wasn't planning on getting tough that fast,
Yeah.
but I had to do that.
But then it served you well here later in life as you were entering into this
Right,
male-dominated
absolutely.
field. So
Absolutely,
that's cool.
yeah.
And so you were explaining to me that while you were working for one of these companies, you started opening your own side
Right,
business
right.
called Parties with
Right.
Parties with
well,
Rossi.
this was the 80s, and
Yeah.
so it was the era of terrible names for your company. You know, there was Bodies
That
by
was
Jake,
bad.
Parties by Rossi.
Yeah.
And so I started this business on the side, and I was still working for other people, which paid the rent, and that gave me the courage to do this. You know, I wasn't relying on the income.
Yeah, it's always great to start a business when you already have a
I
job.
know,
Yeah.
I know, I
yeah,
know.
Smart.
The problem was people kept calling and asking for terrible food because I guess the name of the company didn't inspire them to ask for anything interesting.
Yeah.
And so it was getting very depressing. You know, they were like, "Can you make chicken cordon bleu?" I was like, "I can, but then I have to kill myself." You know? And so I thought, I want a name for my company where they just won't even call in the first place.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was writing a cooking column called The Raging Skillet. And so I'm typing it in. This is like back in the days when we had typewriters.
Yeah.
And while I'm finishing it, I'm like, I need a name. And then I look at the title of my column. I'm like, oh my God, The Raging Skillet. And so I named my company The Raging Skillet. And pretty much from that point on, I've gotten almost always interesting phone calls. Like,
Right.
you could do a performance piece based on the unusual requests I get,
Oh, I bet.
which is really fun.
What are some of them?
Well, the best one was when I was asked to cater the VIP party for the vagina monologues.
Oh, wow.
So I had all celebrities. I had Whoopi Goldberg and Rosie Perez and Glenn Close and, everybody. And my job was to feed the 600 VIPs afterwards an enormous amount of food, but that it should all be anatomically correct. So if you think about making lots of things to look like vaginas, that was a really good challenge. Like oval-shaped croutons with like a slither of Korean barbecue beef down the center and some black puff of seaweed,
And they knew you could do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. It was a fabulous challenge.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So you have fun with this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you named your company The Raging Skillet.
Right.
And then your first book, The
Right.
Raging Skillet,
Right.
also
Right.
your memoir
Right,
of
right.
growing up in this Orthodox Jewish family
Right.
and your story to
And escaping.
your
and-
escaping and then eventually
chef.
becoming the chef with all these interesting recipes which are in the book,
Right,
The Raging
right,
Skillet.
a lot of them are.
Now, one that stands out that I recall was Snickers
Mm-hmm.
and potato chip casserole. I really want to try that.
You would love it. Well, when I was recipe testing for the book-
Everybody here in LA is just gasping right now.
horrified. It's probably
These
not gluten-free.
LA healthy eaters are
It's
horrified.
probably not gluten-free. It makes a terrible mess. It'll ruin your diet.
And
It's
it's all
everything
sugar.
wrong. And basically, when I was recipe testing for the book, I thought, well, this is bound to be horrible.
Yeah.
Because I was 13 years old when I made it. Like, how good could it be? And the recipe involves taking butter and melting Snickers bars and marshmallows and mixing it with potato chips and pressing it into a mold and then cutting it up. And how disgusting. You know what? It's fabulous.
Now, what
I've had
made
it on
you-
my menu ever since.
What made you come up with this? Because this was like when you were a kid, there wasn't a lot of food in the house or something, and you were just grabbing all these different things and seeing what worked or something?
Well, I came up with the idea because I had a party and I gave everyone Michelob beer and Snickers bars. And I thought, the Snickers thing, I feel like there's more to it. So the idea was that all of my parties as a teenager had to include Snickers as an ingredient. And generally everyone had smoked so much marijuana, it was very successful. Now I said that, I went on the Eyewitness News for a Mother's Day special, and I showed the Snickers Krispies, and I talked about it, and I said to the newscaster, this is something I invented when I was 13 years old and extremely stoned. And do you know I got censored? They had just done like a crack bust, a rape, a gang shooting, a murder, you know, and they were like, but no, we can't talk about marijuana and 13-year-olds. I'm like, oh my God, you know, who knew?
Yeah, who knew? Well, now they can because it's legal.
That's right.
So here you are, you're telling me you're at the book signing because you just did a two-year tour of your book, and that was super fun.
Right.
I know you had it here in LA at Book Soup.
Right, at Book Soup. It was great.
You told me the story about the guy who's in line who almost looked like, well, I'll let you tell the story, that said he wanted to write your story into a one-woman show. So
it's a three-person show, actually.
Oh, okay, so...
But
I want
enough.
you to tell the story.
So it was like the first stop on the book tour. I was at the Javits Center, and there were thousands of people there. And I thought, you know, what can I do to get more people to my table? And so I decided to put out peanut butter and bacon sandwiches. And this huge crowd shows up. I mean,
wow.
tons
I would
of people.
so be there.
Oh, everybody was there. Everybody. And so a lot of people were there because they knew it was a chef memoir, and a lot of people were there for the peanut butter and bacon sandwiches. But I look at it, I see this long line of people. And then on the line, I see this guy, and he looks kind of crazy. He's got like a scraggly beard, and he's dressed in the same color of brown as like a UPS worker. And so I'm like, who's crazy guy, you know? Anyway, he gets up to me, and he says, I want to turn your book into a play. And so I'm thinking, you know, let's be very nice to him, and maybe, you know, he won't hurt me, you know. And I'm like, sure, what a lovely idea, you know, have a sandwich, you know, no problem. But he stayed in touch, and he was really serious. And then I Googled him, of course, and found out he really was a playwright, and he may or may not be crazy, but he really had done some great plays. And so I was like, all right, I pay more attention. Anyway, one day I'm in LA, I'm visiting my dad, and he sends me the entire first draft of the play. I mean, 120 pages or whatever it was.
Gosh.
And I thought, like, we had no agreement yet. You know, I could have said no, and then it would have been a horrible waste. But I thought, all right, I better read it. And I was praying I was going to like it. So it was laugh out loud hysterical. I mean, I was in my hotel room just cracking up hysterical. So I was like, okay, I agree. You know, we signed the contract. I was like thrilled. But then I thought, you know, that the theater it was going to in Connecticut.
And he was from Connecticut?
He was
Is that
from
how
Connecticut.
it ended up in Connecticut?
He was from Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And we knew it was going to Theater Works.
So you thought it was going to be some little podunk theater?
I thought, well, Theater Works must be some dumpy place on the highway. Maybe there'll be pole dancers or something, you know. In fact, I mean, if you ever have a chance to go to see this theater, it's gorgeous. It's like a Lincoln.
What part of Connecticut?
Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
It's called Theater Works, and there was a big banner outside with Richard Dreyfuss on it. I mean, it's a gorgeous theater. And so, even so, they set it up as like the summer sleeper. They gave some of the staff a vacation, and they didn't really think that it was going to be all that. And then it wound up selling out. I mean, like crazy standing ovations selling out.
A big 5-week smash.
For 5 weeks. It was crazy smash, crazy
in this
smash.
Gorgeous
in
theater
this gorgeous
in
theater.
Connecticut. Yeah.
And the craziest part was on the nights that I was there, they would always tell the audience because they'd be like, well, the real Chef Rossi is in the house and she'll sign your book. And so when that would happen, the audience would go nuts, like Madonna's in the theater. And I was like, don't these people know I live off Avenue C? You know, I don't even own a car. Come on.
That's funny. Well, and who played you? Judy Gold, right?
Well, in Hartford, a wonderful actress named Dana Smith Kroll, who's fantastic, played me. She was amazing, amazing. And then we had a New York showcase, and Judy Gold played me.
Oh, yes.
Which
she's
was meant
hilarious.
to be. I mean,
famous
she's a
comedian.
loudmouth Jewish
I
lesbian
can't even imagine
playing
her
me.
playing you. It had to
perfect.
be fantastic.
She was in heaven. She felt like she was playing herself.
Oh,
she was
my
like, I get to
gosh.
play a loudmouth
And then
Jewish lesbian.
Who
Please
played
bring
your
it on.
mother?
Catherine Cates played my mother in New York. She was wonderful. She's wonderful. She's like known from Seinfeld and a bunch of other things.
Oh, wow.
And in Hartford, Marilyn Sokol played my mother. She's fantastic. You'll recognize her face. She's like a 52-year Emmy award-winning actress.
Wow,
Amazing.
you really had
an
amazing
amazing
talent.
cast.
And now it's going to be in St. Louis, and then who knows where. I hope it's going to come here to L.A. So you're working on taking it around the country?
Right. It comes to Wellfleet. Our opening night is on August 24th.
Oh, fantastic.
Right in Wellfleet on Cape
Great.
Cod.
In 2 nights from now.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
We're excited, and it's running all the way till September 15th.
Okay.
And,
And what's the name of the theater?
The Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater, which is
Wonderful.
affectionately known as WAT, because that's a very long sentence.
Fantastic.
And then in October, we go to St. Louis to the New Jewish Theater, which is going to be fantastic.
Oh, great.
So we're hoping it'll come to LA.
So you have the
That's a
one-woman
little
show.
Jewish star.
You have the one-woman show.
The three-person
You do
show.
a podcast as
That's
well.
right, that's
and,
right.
You're on which radio in New York?
Well, I've been on WOMR and WFMR, which is taped on Cape Cod, and I've been doing a show
Providence.
in Provincetown, in New Orleans, and also
Provincetown.
in Orleans, right?
Oh,
And it's
cool.
now in its 13th year.
Wow.
The show's called Bite This. It's a lot of fun.
And how could people see that? Do they have to be in Provincetown?
You could just go to WOMR.org
Oh,
and
okay.
go on Bite This, and you can hear all my old podcasts.
Bite
It's
This.
lots of fun, yeah.
And I know you do a lot of Huffington Post articles
Right,
too.
right,
I love
absolutely.
reading them. You are a fantastic writer.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, podcasts, the books, the HuffPost, you have the new book you're working on.
Right.
Is that completed?
I have completely finished it. I'm really excited
Looking
about
for
it.
an agent
Escape
for
from
that.
Kingston Avenue. Yeah, I'm looking for an agent. So.
And I know you want to make a screenplay out of that, right?
I wrote a screenplay for the first
you
book.
wrote it already?
Yeah, I wrote that already. It's fantastic.
Is it called The Raging Skillet?
That's called The Raging Skillet.
Okay.
Then I want to write one for Escape from Kingston Avenue, too.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it has all the right ingredients
Oh,
for
yeah.
a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
I've read the book. It is hilarious. People can get The Raging Skillet on Amazon, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you have a website, The Raging Skillet, of course.
TheRagingSkillet.com.
Hello. And so if people want to have their parties catered, you do that in New York.
In the New York area.
And in New York, do you have like a favorite party that you've catered besides the vagina monologues?
Oh, my God.
Or a
It's-
favorite client?
Do you know what? It's usually the last thing. Like I'm always doing things I love. But I did have a client once who wanted me to feed all her guests from a bathtub, which was kind of a brilliant challenge. And so we took a giant 6-foot brass antique bathtub and we filled it with ice.
Why did she want that?
I guess it was
Just to be different?
just a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like some fantasy she had as a little girl. Maybe
We
she
never-
liked eating in the bath when she was a little girl. Like who knows?
You don't ask, you just do it.
I'm
huh?
like whatever. I'm down for it. So we filled it up with ice and then we covered it with a raw bar, and it was really exciting.
You know, I don't know how the Raging Skillet would do in Peoria, but you are in the perfect location for New York or perhaps L.A.
Well, we definitely want the play to come to LA.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, we'll have to make that happen.
Definitely.
And this movie, who would you like to play you in the movie?
Oh, I know. I've always known. This is the reason I wrote the screenplay. Was I started
who is
imagining
it?
her, Natasha Lyonne.
Okay.
Come on,
That would-
Natasha Lyonne from Orange is the New Black. She'd be a
Yes,
great
right.
Rossi.
Perfect. Okay.
For my mother, I want it to be Harvey Feinstein.
Wait, that's already been done before.
Wait, Harvey Firestein. I pronounced his name wrong. Sorry, Harvey.
Harvey Firestein, yeah. But he already played the woman in the mother in hair.
I
mean,
know,
not hair,
I know.
hairspray.
But
Not,
he was,
not in hair. In
he
hairspray,
was so
there's
good,
a big
though.
difference.
He's perfect.
Yeah.
I think he would be great.
Yeah. So since you're, really on your laurels, like what's next? So this the screenplay,
Mm-hmm.
the second book, and continuing to build your business
yeah,
in New
I'm
York.
right
and
now-
this show, this live show.
Right now, I'm looking for an agent for the
Yeah.
screenplay in the second book.
Okay.
And I'm talking
Well, you're
to
in the right place,
I
Los
know,
Angeles.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
hoping I find a great one.
Yeah.
And I'm like talking every day about getting the play out around the country as best I can.
You know, there's one thing I know about you, and that's you're a manifester.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And
Thank
so I can't wait for the movie.
you. I can't wait for it too.
Right. Well, thank you for being on. I'm so happy. I know you flew in with Lydia today from New York, and I'm so happy to have you all here. And we're going to be back on next Wednesday. We'll see you then. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being on, Chef Rossi. Make it a great day. Hugs and happiness.